Today, we are delving into week 2 of this Diddy trial. Now, if you've been following up to this point, you know it is chaotic, crazy, and quite salacious. And if you want more, let's get into it. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Andrea Banu. And so just like I said above the intro, we are getting into week 2 of this Diddy trial. Now, if you've been following up to this point, you know it has been crazy. I even heard a man on social media say he thinks his ears are a little too young to be hearing about some of the stuff that went off on these freak offs. It is crazy, okay? The amount of detail that Miss Cassie went into was a lot. And so now we are in week 2. And so the prosecution is pretty much going to be backing up and substantiating everything she stated last week. And so yesterday we heard from Don Richard. And so Don Richard, you know, is a member of Danity Kane as well as Diddy Dirty Money. And so Miss Dawn spoke about an incident where she was at Diddy's home and he picked up a skillet and hit Cassie with it. Now, I don't know if the eggs were too wet or if it just wasn't enough seasoning, but something set this crazy man off and he ends up attacking Cassie over this. Miss Dawn Richard says that he grabs Cassie's hair, drags her upstairs, and then you can hear them tussling from other parts of the house. Now, Dawn said that she did not intervene, no one else intervened, and they did not call the police. And when asked why, Dawn told the prosecution that typically they stay out of it out of fear of Diddy. She said that the next day after that event, Diddy informed them that him and Cassie are just very passionate and in love. Things get kind of out of control, but they were told to never speak about these things. And if so, he knows how to make people go missing. Now, interpret that however you want, but that is what he told Miss Dawn, which is why they never spoke about this incident. And so the defense had a lot of issues with Dawn's testimonies. They felt like they had opportunity to poke holes in her testimony. Apparently, she did not tell the details of the skillet incident to the prosecution when they originally interviewed her. However, the judge did decide today to keep her testimony as it stands. And then they moved over to Miss Carrie Morgan. Now, Miss Carrie Morgan was a friend of Cassie for over 18 years. Miss Carrie Morgan knew Cassie way before Diddy, way before Ryan Leslie, all the way back into her modeling days. They were both living in New York at the time, so they've been friends a very, very long time. However, Miss Carrie Morgan stated that what ultimately ended their friendship was the violence she saw and endured by the hands of Diddy. And so Miss Carrie Morgan stated there was one incident where they were traveling, vacationing, shall I say, in Jamaica. And Diddy was so enraged by the fact that Cassie was staying in the bathroom too long that he literally grabbed her by her hair, drug her down this long hallway of the hotel, and proceeded to assault her. Cassie ran, it looks like, or she says that Diddy ran after her in a golf cart. She jumped in a golf cart. They went opposite directions in search of Cassie. Miss Carrie Morgan ultimately found and caught up with Cassie, and they had to literally hide in a ditch to get away from Diddy and his rage, which was insane. She also spoke about a second instance. If memory serves me correctly, it was with regards to that 2016 incident where that we all saw in the hallway given by CNN. So Carrie Morgan says after that incident, Diddy came to the house again, enraged, and was beating on the door with a hammer. Okay, a hammer, trying to get into the apartment. She said it was so disturbing, so much noise that the neighbors ended up calling the police. When the police showed up due to the noise disturbance, Cassie refused to give Diddy up. She refused to make a statement, and thus they went away and only left their card. She also spoke about another incident where Diddy actually, I guess, got through the door and physically attacked her. He actually hit her in the head with a wooden hanger, giving her a concussion. He had to seriously be wielding that damn hanger to hurt this woman in that manner. He also choked her that day as well. And ultimately, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. That is when Carrie Morgan said, she could not deal with it anymore. It was too violent. That is not something she was about to indulge in. She asked Cassie to leave him. Of course, we know that Cassie did not. And so ultimately, Miss Carrie Morgan ended her relationship with Cassie. She did specify that they paid her $30,000 hush money so that she would not sue for any more or go to the public or to the police. And she did take that money. And she did sever her relationship with Cassie. She has not spoken to Cassie, I think she said, since 2018 at that incident. You could tell through her body language and her demeanor, she did not want to be at this case. This trial does not want any parts to do with Cassie nor Diddy or anything. The defense did ask her why she was prosecuted. I'm sorry, the prosecution did ask her why she was testifying today. And she clearly said, because I was subpoenaed. So she literally came from underground just so that she could testify, which she was forced to do, and then left immediately after that. So, I liken her to that scene in the What's Love Got to Do With It movie with Tina Turner, where, Ike hit one of her friends and she was like, listen, I am not going to stay around for this. You can stay and let this man put his hands on you, but I ain't about that life. So this friend of Cassie had the exact same sentiment and was like, I'm getting the hell up out of here. It ain't enough money and enough fame to make me endure this level of craziness and chaos. And so she did a great testimony, and it was riveting in terms of just her conviction and her seriousness about not wanting to be a part of this craziness and disappearing. And then they also had on the stand Diddy's personal assistant. And so this personal assistant, he talked about how he got to Bad Boy, and he ultimately stated that he had to leave as well because he gave an incident to where Diddy and his crew pulled out a bunch of guns, and he was in an SUV looking for Suge Knight and a whole bunch of craziness. He had never been in an experience like that. Diddy had him working 20 hours a day, back to back, and it was just too crazy. So due to even just working 20 hours a day, he said, it just got to be too much when guns got involved. He also stated that he did supply some of the items for the freak-offs. He did say he supplied Diddy with drugs. Don Richard, as well as the assistant, spoke about a particular drug dealer named One Stop, who Diddy got a lot of his drugs from. He not only got drugs from One Stop, he got Plan B, as well as birth control, Viagra, and a whole lot of other stuff, ketamine, everything. So One Stop was seriously a one-stop shop. He got everything. And they are stating that all of those drugs were held in that notorious Louis Vuitton bag that Diddy carries everywhere. So ultimately, this assistant just talked about, I would say a level of chaos with regards to just the schedule itself, always being in the studio, working long hours, and then ultimately needing to sever ties just because the guns and the chaos of being around Diddy just got to be a bit too much. And then also, he also specified that he walked in on a freak off. He said Cassie was in the bed. It looks like she was asleep. He heard someone in the shower. I can only assume that was Diddy. And he saw a male worker who was well endowed, who hurried and scurried off. I remember prosecution asking about that early on. Cassie said she did not recall an escort or an assistant entering into one of their freak offs, but it confirmed that he did walk in on that. They asked him if he asked questions. He said he was not paid to ask questions, and that was that. And so now today they followed up with the assistant, because yesterday they've been finishing early at around 3 every day, because I think they are letting the jurors go over all the evidence and, doing whatever's necessary behind closed doors so that they have more time and can get out of there at 5:00. So he's been getting people off the stand, the judge that is, at a timely manner so that the jurors and the lawyers have time to go over a lot more evidence and prepare for the next day. And so The assistant, David James was his name, testified about an incident with Suge Knight. And so he ultimately said that's what made him leave. Now, I'm going to read you some testimony with regards to another ex-worker. Oh, no. Who else testified today? Cassie's mom. So Cassie's mom also testified today. She testified and was a witness to a lot of the abuse. She was the one that took pictures of some of Cassie's bruises and things of that nature that were inflicted by Diddy. And something that was new that we learned today, that there was some level of extortion by Diddy. She said that when Diddy found out that Cassie was dating Kid Cudi, he demanded money. He demanded $20,000 that he said he invested in Cassie and wanted that money back, and demanded that she pay that, or else he was going to release some of these explicit tapes of Cassie. Cassie went to her mother crying, wanting her mother's help, and her parents actually put up her home, put up a second mortgage for their home so that they could get the $20,000 to give to Diddy to not only prevent those tapes from being exposed, but her mother said she feared for Cassie and Kid Cudi's safety, which is why they wanted to pay Diddy that money. And so they did. They paid Diddy that money so that he would not release those tapes or harm Cassie. So that was huge today as well. The defense did not cross-examine or ask any questions with regards to Cassie's mother. They let that testimony stand. Also, again, today we had another ex-worker, and I'm going to pull that up for you because I want to read that testimony because I thought it was wild, just like this whole setup that they had going on. And even still, as salacious as this is, I still do really feel for Cassie, because I just think it's crazy for anybody to have to indulge what she was doing. Everything just appeared to be under duress, which is insane to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read some of today's testimony. And so the escort today is the one that goes by the Punisher. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you. Bear with me. Okay, so here we are with this next escort. I'm sorry. What are we going to call these people? Male workers. Okay, and so here's the the ex-worker. The government calls, or the prosecution calls, Sheree Hayes. I ultimately thought this was going to be a female escort. Oh, I keep messing it up. A female worker. However, this is the gentleman known as the Punisher. So here the prosecution says, "Where are you from?" Sheree Hayes says, "Harlem, New York." Prosecution: "What was your work?" The Punisher: "Male escort dancer. No, male exotic dancer. I was known as the Punisher." Prosecution: "Do you recognize these two?" And they put up a picture of both Diddy and Cassie. The Punisher: "I do. Mr. Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. I was hired in 2012 to create a sexy, erotic scene for them." They show these photos. Okay. And then prosecution: "Why were you called the Punisher?" The Punisher: "Playing basketball on West 4th Street." So he got that when he was young via playing basketball. Prosecution: "The woman who called you, what time did she book you?" The Punisher: "Midnight at Trump Tower, Central Park West. Striptease for a small group of friends." Prosecution: "When you got there, how did Miss Ventura appear?" Hayes. Again, this is the Punisher. I'll just say Hayes. In a bathrobe with nothing underneath and a wig. I was expecting a crowd, but there was no one else there. She told me she and her husband wanted to create a sensual scene with baby oil." Prosecution: "What did she hand to you?" Hayes: $800. Prosecution: "How was the room?" Hayes: "Dimly lit, electric candles, bowls of water with bottles of baby oil in them. She told me not to acknowledge her husband, not to look at him when he came out." So prosecution: "Did he come out?" Hayes: "Yes, he was naked, but I could not see his face. It was like what those Muslim women wear, where you can only see their eyes. And he had a bottle of Astroglide." Now, first of all, I don't mean to laugh. I'm really not trying not to laugh. But first of all, How do you come out butt naked with a mask on? The way he's stating it was like a hijab or something, right? Butt naked with nothing on but something that's covering your whole face and only your eyes out, and then just a bottle of a bottle of Astroglide. Like, you look crazy. Like, you look crazy. I couldn't even imagine being anywhere and somebody come out the bathroom like that and I'd be turned on. Like, what the hell is going on here? But I digress. Let me go ahead and keep reading. Okay. But I digress. Let me go ahead and keep reading. Okay. So so the prosecution says, how did you, so he said he had a bottle of Astroglide. So the prosecution says, how did you recognize it? Hayes said, because I use it. It has a purple top. And so prosecution said, how did it end? And Hayes said, she went into the other room with him. When she came back, she asked me if I wanted to finish. I said no. If they were happy, I was happy. She gave me more money. Prosecution, did you do it again? Hayes, yes, 8 or 12 times. 8 or 12 times. Okay. Prosecution, how did you end up recognizing her? Hayes says, I was a fan of Mr. Combs and followed him on Instagram, and I saw her on Instagram with him. And prosecution says, this would be a good place to break. Oh no. Okay, so yes, they break for lunch, then they come back. Okay, so prosecution, how were these sessions scheduled? Hayes said, I'd be reached out to at around 5 or 7 p.m. or later. They'd ask for a sexy scene, but I knew it would be more. Prosecution, how would it start? Hayes, baby oil, a sexy, seductive atmosphere, and then Mr. Combs would direct. Excuse me. Prosecution, how did the direction work? Hayes, Mr. Combs might say, sit forward, move the camera, or what would happen actually. One time during interaction, he dropped a stack of money. He said, I like this ish. Prosecution, how much baby oil did you use? Hayes, a lot. We were supposed to be glistening as much as possible. Prosecution, how long would they last? Hayes, 4 hours, a lot of waiting, maybe 40 minutes or so. I was supposed to finish in a specific spot. That is creepy. I was supposed to finish in a specific spot. Very random. Yikes. Okay. Prosecution. Then what? Hayes. Or Harris. I'm sorry, I'm giving him a new last name. Harris. She would leave with Mr. Combs 10 or 15 minutes. She returned in a bathrobe and pay me $2,000 or $1,200 cash. Prosecution. Did you think Miss Ventura was enjoying herself? Objection. Sustained. Prosecution. Did you use rugs? Hayes. I am not a marijuana smoker, but I did pull a Bill Cosby. I was handed a joint. Prosecution. Did you have performance issues? Hayes. Oh, he spelled it wrong, so I was saying it right. Hayes. Did you have performance issues? Hayes. Having the woman's partner there? Yes. Prosecution. Did the issue affect your pay? Objection. Overruled. Hayes. I wasn't sure how they calculated it. One time, Mr. Combs threw condoms on the couch next to us. I struggled. It was a failure. Prosecution. What happened? Hayes. They went out. I finished. She came back and thanked me for privacy. That's wild. It's just wild to me that like they have this random person here. They go to a room, they do that. She come back, ask if he want to finish. It's just wild. Okay, prosecution. What did you think would happen next? Hayes. I was worried I would not get used. I was worried I wouldn't get used again. I hadn't done my job. He had said, I wanted to see. Oh, okay. Let me read this. I was worried I would not be used again. I hadn't done my job. He has said, I want to see you F her, and I couldn't. Prosecution, are you writing a book? Hayes, yes, a self-help book about my ED. It's advice. Oh my God, he writing a book about ED. Okay. Prosecution, in your book, do you write about your time with Mr. Combs and Mrs. Ventura? Hayes, yes, I call them a married wealthy couple. Prosecution, how long is it? Hayes says 6 pages out of 186. I sensationalize it. I wanted it to be enjoyable, highs and lows. Prosecution, no further questions. Judge, and so now the cross examination. So this is the defense. Xavier Donaldson, I'll try to make this as harmless as possible. Congratulations on your book. What's it called? Hayes, In Search of Freezer Meat. What's harder than that? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. This man, oh my God. A book about ED called In Search of Freezer Meat. What's harder than that? Donaldson, good title. Donaldson, you have a website? Hayes, yes. Now I'm a co-owner. All the male dancers are independent contractors. Donaldson, you've been doing this for about 25 years. Hayes, 30 years, coming up on a big anniversary. Donaldson, you dance with them. Hayes, a professional dry hump. Donaldson, for 30 years, thousands of ladies. You tried to not develop feelings for them, right? Hayes, you try not to. It's a job. Donaldson, but you talked with Cassie. Hayes, cordial. Donaldson, she asked to be able to call you, right? Hayes, just to set the sessions up. We were never asked to talk. Donaldson, she was comfortable with you. Hayes, she said so. Donaldson, you had feelings for her. Hayes, that's not correct. Donaldson, but you thought she was only doing this with you. Hayes, that is correct. So the escort, I keep saying escort, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully they don't ding me. The male worker thought he was the only worker they were using. Wow. Okay. That is correct. She said it was a special occasion. Donaldson, you did develop feelings for her. Hayes, that's not correct. Donaldson, you told the government. Donaldson, the government's notes say you developed feelings for her. Hayes, that may have been taken out of context. Donaldson, you used your 25 years experience. Hayes, this was a different scene. Usually I aimed for humor. Ah, okay. So he was like, this was totally different setup than he had experienced in his 25 years. So Donaldson, you wouldn't try to dry hump someone who didn't want to be dry humped, correct? Hayes says, yes, it is important to read the room. Donaldson, so you read the room with Cassie and she wanted objection. So he was trying to insinuate that you read the room and she wanted it. So prosecution objected. Judge sustained. Donaldson, was Mr. Combs's request that you penetrate? Hayes, it was a demand, a strong suggestion. Donaldson, Cassie paid you even when you canceled, right? Hayes, yes, $500. Donaldson, Mr. Hayes, I wish you success with your book. Hayes, thank you. So now this is redirect back to the prosecution. What made you think Miss Ventura was enjoying herself? Hayes, it was the first time unprotected. Ooh. Prosecution, without the details. Donaldson, objection. The Punisher, Hayes, still on the stand, hearing the sketch. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So, prosecution, no further questions. Judge, anything? Mr. Donaldson. So, Donaldson, what do you mean by steamy? Hayes, I felt it was enjoyable for Mr. Ventura and Mr. Combs. Is that all he said? Because I know they broke for the day. Okay, yeah, that was it. So, this is what I was saying. The very first video I did, I was like, this is really crazy based on the fact that it's already crazy just on what we know. But when you add the layer that a lot of these male workers were not wearing protection, and remind you, these were workers that they hired from Backpage and Craigslist. Like, ew, like, ooh. Mm. And then, mm, 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 mm. So I watched that video and I was like, I know that that first escort said that he wasn't wearing protection. And now this second escort saying he didn't wear protection. So it appears that maybe when they started with them, they would. And then the more comfortable they got with them or the more they used them, for whatever reason, they stopped. You still don't know these people. This is crazy. But nonetheless, it says here, when did he feel like she was enjoying herself? And he said the first time they had it unprotected, the first time they went unprotected, he felt like she was enjoying herself. Oh Lord. Woo. Okay. And so then to proceed, they end up discussing with talking to, sorry, let me remove that. They end up talking to a special agent that was with Homeland Security. And so the Homeland Security guy comes, he shows a bunch of pictures, and they're talking about the raid on Diddy's home in Miami. He talks about they found guns, well, AR-15s that were broken up or separated, taken apart, as well as obviously a million bottles of baby oil, women's shoes, all kind of craziness. You know, it's a Diddy party, right? It's a Diddy party. So it's all kind of craziness. But on those guns, the serial numbers are scratched off. So that's a problem. Did he speak about drugs? I don't remember if he spoke about drugs. Let me see this. This was when they raided Star Island. Okay, so he said they found parts of AR-15s, sex X toys, and Astroglide. So a whole lot of Astroglide, baby oil, and all kind of craziness. And so, like I said, the judge is ending around 3 o'clock every day. So they ended early. So they stopped in the middle of his testimony. I'm assuming they're going to follow up tomorrow. So like I said, the prosecution is just piling it on, piling it on, piling it on. Truth be told, from my impression, the defense is really not defending Diddy a whole lot. However, his actions just may be indefensible because they didn't have no smoke for pretty much anybody. I mean, you know, Carrie, I'm sorry, what is her name? Carrie Morgan, Cassie's friend for 18 years. They didn't really have no pushback. Cassie's mama, they didn't ask no questions. The ex-worker, they just said he's, you know, writing a book, but he talks about Diddy and Cassie, but he doesn't actually specify their names in it. Yeah, man. And it's just, again, it's just really crazy to me what she was exposed to with regards to these male workers, you know, on top of it just being such an exploit in terms of her person and her body, and all of this being filmed, like the health implications. Like she talked about on day one, constantly having UTIs and sores in her mouth. I'm going to go ahead and allege that there's a lot of other things that she's, you know, endured medically that of course she's not going to talk about for her own personal privacy. But if anybody has seen that Jonathan Odie interview, he talks about, you know, some STDs that he received, which is why they ultimately settled for $5 million. Now, like I stated, Jonathan Odie is supposed to testify as well, and they still got 2 more victims. So the prosecution is just laying on all of these layers for Cassie. They haven't even gotten to the other victims. So, yeah, it's crazy. And I just found out yesterday that the prosecution, with regards to the X trafficking, what they're trying to substantiate, one is that she was, so I guess with X trafficking, it doesn't have to be in exchange for money. So if she's performing these acts, but Diddy promises a career, he promises he's going to continue to pay her bills, her apartment, her car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that could still be goods that are being provided to her for these, you know, freak offs and for these actual acts. And he's flying her from state to state to perform these acts in exchange for XYZ goods. And so, again, that is where that X trafficking charge is coming from. So I really thought that the meat of this X trafficking was going to come from, you know, him actually paying these adult entertainers to perform for them and, you know, giving them money, and they ultimately, you know, performing these X acts with him and Cassie. But it's deeper than that. Supposedly, or allegedly, I would say the prosecution is stating that Cassie is being forced into these X acts in exchange for, you know, studio time, a car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the bills he was paying, she has to, in order to maintain that, she's got to be able to perform in this way against her will. And so that's a layer that I wasn't even privy to, that I heard a lawyer speak about yesterday in regards to just the depth of X trafficking. And of course, we all know that the RICO is going to come into play when you actually have security and other people and assistants and things of that nature who participate in who participated in scheduling these things, were the ex-workers supplying the baby oil, booking the hotels, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this case is going to be very long and arduous, but in my assessment, they're doing an incredible job, prosecution, in regards to laying their case out, and the defense. I don't know what their strategy is, because they haven't really impressed me at this moment, which is really crazy, because I know Diddy is paying a whole lot of money for these lawyers, and it doesn't seem like they're doing a bang up job of really being able to get out of this. Now, from what I understand, prosecution offered a plea deal of roughly 15 years, and Diddy declined it. He wanted to go to trial. He didn't want to do 15 years. So truth be told, I think if his defense lawyers want to allow him the opportunity to see the light of day, he should probably take a plea at this moment in time, because this is getting bad. I mean, every day it's just a pile-on after a pile-on after a pile-on. They're going to continue to have assistants. They're going to speak to this chef that he supposedly had a lawsuit with, who was present for a lot of this. It's getting ugly. It just gets uglier and uglier and uglier by the day, and it's way deeper than just a domestic abuse situation. Oh, that's another thing. The assistant that I said, wow, that really puts a nail in the coffin with regards to his lack of concern for Cassie. The assistant stated that he overheard someone asking Diddy about Kim Porter and Cassie, and Diddy's reply was, "Kim is my queen. She's in LA with my family. Cassie is right where I want her. She's young and moldable." And so it was just really disheartening to feel that, because I know, or hear that, because I know, just based on testimony, Cassie this entire time felt like Diddy cared for her, and that she at one point thought they were actually monogamous. The assistant actually also specified, when prosecution asked how many different girlfriends did Diddy have while he was working with Diddy, and he stated 5. He said it was Kim, Sarah, Tara, Cassie, and I think he said like a Yana or a Yara. So that was 5 different chicks. And then we know about a Gina. And so that's 6 chicks right there that we've just heard about. So, and the prosecution also asked the assistant, did Diddy ever stay in any hotels alone? And he said never. And he said, and they asked, who did he stay in the hotels with? And he said, sometimes Cassie, sometimes someone else. And so that's another layer that's really crazy, because Cassie was under the impression that, Kim was his children's father, and that he was actually being monogamous with her, and it was just the 2 of them, and she was doing these things to please him, because she felt like, she was secure with him in performing these acts. But Diddy, the whole time, it appears to really have his commitment, if you can say that, was with Kim. I would say she was his main, and everybody else was, just his entertainment. And so, like I said, it's really sad to hear that from the assistant, because this entire time, that this very young, impressionable girl, Cassie, at the time, really believed that Diddy cared for her, and that she was doing these things because they were in a monogamous relationship, and that he loved her. But the entire time he was, playing her, he was juggling multiple different people. And again, that's really scary to think that, Cassie was exposing herself to all of these male workers, not protecting herself, and doing all of these things. And Diddy was still doing him. Like, he would jump from her to this hotel, and then to another hotel, and here and here and here and here. He was all over the place. And it's wild. It's really wild. And it's really sad. It truly is. It's just sad, because she was incredibly naive, and she's aware of that now. So like I said, it gets sadder and more chaotic as every day goes by. Like I said, this is definitely a cautionary tale that all that glitters ain't gold. Okay. And you got to really have your head together with regards to what you are willing to do for your own personal dreams and ambitions. And if somebody compromises you in any way that's not comfortable, know when to say no, know when to say enough is enough. I just feel like, Cassie was just one of those girls who didn't know how to say no. She didn't have her confidence. She didn't have her voice. And she met, somebody who really took full advantage of her. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that scene in the original Sparkle. Have y'all seen that? The original Sparkle, when Big Sister met that gangster. He was like a drug dealer. He was a real bad guy. He's the one that got her hooked on drugs, and ultimately she ended up losing her life behind this man. But I remember the one time she introduced this man to her mama. I'll never forget. And I keep that scene in my head because she was so excited I can't even talk. She was so excited to perform that night and introduce her new boo to her mama, right? And so she comes in and it's a nightclub. She's all dressed and she's like, Mama, oh my God, I want you to meet Tony. I'm gonna just call him Tony because I don't remember what his real name is in the movie. And so he comes and he sits down and he's like, hey, Mama, it's nice to meet you. You have a wonderful, daughter. She's this and that. And the look on the mama's face, I'm gonna put the picture up so you can see mama's face, but these are the words that mama said. She looked him up and down and she said, I've lived in New York a long time. I know a rat when I see one. I was like, no, she didn't. She said, I know a rat when I see one. I was like, oh my God, that right there was like the best read of my life. I was like, oh, and I keep that in my head. Like I'm waiting for the moment so I can say that to somebody. But nonetheless, it reminds me of that scene. Like here it is, this young girl who's incredibly naive and unaware, don't have no street smarts, and meets a rat. Okay. And so Diddy was just a deplorable human being to this poor girl in every way imaginable. And I am grateful that she did, find some level of justice with regards to him settling that lawsuit, because she's got to be able to heal from this. She's got to be able to heal, raise her daughters, and move on. The good thing is that time does heal all wounds. She does appear to have a strong family as well as husband that'll help her guide the way. But like I said, this is just, a cautionary tale that all that glitters ain't gold. But what is your opinion? How are you feeling about this case? Are you following the case? And ultimately, I want to know if you think he's going to be found guilty. Do you think the prosecution has done a good enough job to convict, or do you think he's going to be exonerated? I would love to hear your thoughts. So get in the comment section. Tell me how you feel about this case so far. And until next time, this is the Community Ledger. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and watch the next video by clicking right here.